couple of options in the leadoff chair, and I decided that the story that I was most interested in is not the fight over a basketball. Instead, it is what the NBA has done to punish the king of the modern goon. Now, as we mentioned in a previous episode of the show, that in a different generation, Draymond Green would not be that big a story. But the times we live in, where everyone plays grab ass with each other in the NBA, they all love each other, and there's nepotism everywhere, and fraternization, it's a story. So if you didn't see this, and maybe not, we learned that the Warriors forward, the aforementioned Draymond Green, has been suspended indefinitely. The NBA bringing down the hammer for his haymaker, the slap to Yusuf Nurkic right to the face. And there is no end date. There's no end date. According to the NBA release, they said that the indefinite suspension takes into account Draymond Green's repeated history of unsportsmanlike acts. The league said the penalty handed down by Joe Dumars begins immediately. The Warriors are scheduled to play in La La Land on Thursday night against the People's team, the Clippers, so Draymond will not be there. This is already the second suspension. The NBA really hasn't even started their season. This is his second suspension. The real NBA season begins on Christmas. We're not quite there yet. Somebody might want to let the NBA know they've already crowned a champion. Anyway, let us discuss the question, how significant is this punishment for both Draymond Green and for the Warriors? So I've got Arcade, Fox News, and Meteor Shower. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to make a crunchy taco, which I love the crunchy taco. I do. They're very expensive these days. Anyway, first of all, why don't we start here with Draymond rather than the Warriors? We'll start with Draymond. So after a minutes-long analysis of the punishment and what it means to Draymond Green, here's what I believe is going to happen. Now, the word is he's going to have to meet certain criteria. Could there be anger management training? That always works for Draymond Green. But he'll do a few interviews. He'll say, I screwed up, bad job by me. He'll do a podcast with Cowherd and on his network there and say, I'm going to change. Things are going to be different. Things are going to be different. Of course, it's all window dressing. You know that. I know that. We all know that. You can't unpeel an orange. The orange has been peeled. And Draymond, for better or worse, is set in his ways. That is an open and shut statement. He is set in his ways. Eventually, Draymond will return to the NBA. This is not a lifetime punishment. He will come back to the Warriors. I was looking at the calendar, and I think sometime in early January, maybe late January, but sometime in January, Draymond will come back to the team. And at that point, Draymond will be a Cub Scout. He'll be on good behavior. And then he will go down to the arcade and say, what's that in arcade? Well, they have these video games. And he will play a classic Mortal Kombat on the court. Draymond will play Mortal Kombat on the court. He cannot help himself. He cannot help him. This is going to be probably about 20 games.
Finish him.
20-game punishment. I would take the over. 15 to 20, I would take the over. Now, as far as the Warriors are concerned, what about that part? This is a Milton Bradley special for the Warriors. Now, what does that mean, Milton Bradley special? You sank my battleship is what that means. This is turn out the lights, the party's over. Now, to be fair, it was probably over even before this, but this is just the final shovel of dirt on top of the grave for the once mighty Golden State basketball team. They might as well bring back a Donald Foyle, the Warriors. Bring him back. Maybe Mike Montgomery can come back and coach. Bring back the old Warriors. Maybe they can move back to Oakland because they're going to suck. The Warriors are going to blow for a good amount of time here. It is going to be ugly. And Golden State taking a lot of shrapnel from Draymond Green, who's already played about half the time. I mean, when he's played, they've been okay, and not that they're great even when Draymond Green has played. But, man, this is the last supper for the Golden State Warriors. The winds of change are blowing. More on that in a minute. How about Steve Kerr? You think he's going to continue on? You think he might say, well, I've decided I need to spend more time with my family at TNT. I'd like to hang out with them. Yeah, the flea market will be open for business. Now, secondly, is it true? Is it true that Draymond Green is a serial headhunter, that he has a certain type of player that he goes for? Wild story from Agent Zero, who at one point was the most popular player in the NBA. That's true. Gilbert Arenas, for one season, was like the most popular guy in the NBA. Anyway, Gilbert Arenas is now washed up, and he does what all washed-up athletes do. He hosts a podcast. That's what you do. When you're washed up as an athlete, you host a podcast, because everyone's got a podcast. Even I have a podcast. I'm not a washed-up athlete. I'm in my prime as a gas bag. Anyway, Gilbert Arenas said that Dre, as in Draymond Green, is taking care of these Europeans one at a time. That was the quote. Now, Arenas, the implications are obvious here that Gilbert Arenas implying that the media is trying to push, and he said, these Euros, and that's why that Green is choking and slapping them. So I asked the question, is Draymond Green especially targeting the foreign man of mystery in the NBA? All right, so I looked at this, and I actually asked the Magic 8 Ball. I said, Magic 8 Ball, is it true that Draymond Green is targeting European players? And the Magic 8 Ball said, my reply is no. That's what the Magic 8 Ball said. So Draymond Green is like the old catchphrase from Fox News. He's fair and balanced when it comes to poking, kicking, and punching. If you look at the resume, right? You look at the resume. He was suspended for kicking LeBron James back in 2016, the famous one in the NBA Finals. He kicked him right in the Frankenbeans, right there. And he sat out games for a verbal situation with Kevin Durant in 2018. He gave a knuckle sandwich. Unlike Uber Eats, he delivered the knuckle sandwich to Jordan Poole. That was in 2022. So those guys, last I checked, are all not European players. Maybe I'm wrong on that. And more recently, this season, we've had the Euro high step, the Euro excursion, as the Wolves' Rudy Gobert was put in a chokehold like a minute into the game against Minnesota, and we had Nurkic get the John Cena slap. Like Draymond Green treated Nurkic like he was Vince McMahon and just had to slap him. So as a footnote, though, Gilbert Arenas reminds me, there's this paranoia. It's always been this paranoia in the NBA. I remember years ago there was this guy, I guarantee you don't know who this is. His name was Daryl Dawkins, and he was called Chocolate Thunder, one of the great nicknames in NBA history. And Daryl Dawkins was like the first guy I remember when I was young and he's getting into radio and I was covering basketball. And Daryl Dawkins would complain that the NBA wants the European player. They want them to be the star. You hear the same complaints in baseball about players from like the Dominican Republic or other countries. There's like this jealousy, right? There's jealousy of these guys. But anyway, so I looked at it, and Gilbert Arenas, he's wrong. All right, last quick thought. Speaking of the Warriors, there's a story bouncing around. I don't want to miss this. It involves Klay Thompson. Now, Klay Thompson is not only a basketball player, he's terrible. And he's just completely fallen off the map. There's a guy that has never recovered from the multiple medical procedures that he's had. Thompson's in the final year of his contract. We learned recently here that Golden State offered Klay Thompson a fair amount of money, $48 million for a couple of years. $24 million a year for a guy who's washed up. Now, they actually did this before the season, before it was official that Klay Thompson was washed up. And Klay Thompson said, thanks, but no thanks. He rejected betting on himself. Is what he did. So where does the Klay Thompson extension that didn't happen, the kerfluffle, where does this go with the Warriors? So it's one of those who goofed, I've got to know situations, because you look at this one and you talk about holding a losing ticket. And that is a losing. Golden State, what they should do is go damage control. Now, there's a mantra that we have here that you never want to be in the middle of a meteor shower. You don't want to let a falling star fall on you. And the Warriors have already paid Klay Thompson for services rendered, $266 million. The guy's a spot-up shooter that has no other ability at this point, doesn't play defense, and the shot isn't even that good. His efficiency rating is 12.0. That is the efficiency rating, 12.0. Now, I didn't coach in the NBA, and I'm certainly not a stat nerd, but that's not on the top 140 players in the NBA. Klay Thompson this season, his body of work, say it's a small sample size, he has not even ranked among the top 140 in the entire NBA.